Hi, everyone. Matthew Roseman here with Roseman and Company LLC, bringing you another episode of the Business of You. Now, today we're going to talk about resumes and why you need to have a good resume and what you can do to improve yours so that the hiring manager or the HR person that sees it will basically pass it on to the next level. So we're going to be discussing this with Breanne Roseman of Resumes with Roseman. All right, let's get at it. All right, welcome everyone to another edition of the Business of You. I'm here today with Breanne Roseman, founder at founder of Resumes at Roseman's. And we're here today to talk about you and your resume, and why you should have a good resume and some general tips in order to create and maintain an excellent resume. So without further ado, I want to introduce my lovely niece, Breanne Roseman. Breanne, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to your platform. I'm very excited to be here to kind of speak about resume building and just career coaching in general. So thank you again, my uncle Matt, for bringing me on. But yes, so I am the founder, CEO of Resumes with Roseman. We are a new kind of baby launched company where I am supporting those with their resume editing, resume writing, and then also interview coaching as well. So I am a HR professional by background. I've been in HR for about 8 years now. And so with my extensive background in HR and just resume that come across my table. I mean, hundreds of maybe almost thousands of resumes that have come across my table. Know what HR professionals are looking for. So my whole goal and mission with my position is to be able to bridge the gap for those that are looking for careers, especially post COVID, when we get there, to help support them in their endeavors, their career endeavors, and making sure that they're most competition, they're able to beat the competition when it comes down to getting that job. So excited to be here and excited to give some information and insight.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. So one of the things that, again, if you've seen my webcast, one of the things that I like to start with is an understanding of why. Why resumes? Why do I want a good resume? Why is it important?
Resumes are so important. That is going to be your foot in the door. So as soon as you push that submit button to the application, a resume goes out to an HR professional, or even sometimes it goes out to like an automated system where they're evaluating your resume. And so it's important for you to have that foot in the door and have a good, strong foot in the door. You want to make sure that you're competitive. You want to make sure that you're able to articulate your skill set, articulate your value as a potential employee, and be able to really kind of stand out. So resumes are extremely important. You want to make sure that you're formatting it in the proper way. You're executing it in a way that you can achieve that goal of at least getting to the interview stage, right? You don't want to just keep putting your applications out there and it goes to a dark space in the cyber world. You never hear it back, right? So you want to make sure that you're at least putting out the most quality, best qualified, best quality piece of documentation to be able to make sure that you're able to at least land that next step in the application process.
Okay, good. No, I hear you. It's really, without that, people have no idea who you are. I mean, it's at least a first step. People might say, well, I'm a great, interviewer. I can talk and I can sell myself, but you can't even get in the door, right? Like you're saying, without a good resume.
Exactly. If you don't have a strong documentation to say, this is who I am, this is my experience, this is why I'm qualified for the position, no one's going to look at you. So you want to make sure that you're making the right editing, the right critiques, the right updates to your resume so that you are most competitive. Because there are a lot of people applying to these jobs, you know, and a lot of us HR people, we see a lot of applications come across our table. So in order for you to stand out, to be able to make it to that next step in the interview process, it's important to make sure that you have that strong document to support you in the next level.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. So let's start off with your tips. Your tips for, again, a good resume. What is your first tip?
So my first tip is keep a work journal. So this is something that I actually recently discovered myself because I've been in so many different positions and I do so many different things in each role. Like I want to, for me personally, I want to go above and beyond. I want to really make my position my own and not necessarily just do the job description, right? So because of that, I'm doing a lot of things, but if I'm not keeping a work journal, I'm not going to be able to talk to those things.
Yeah.
So what I recommend for people is that you keep a work journal so that when you're looking for growth opportunities or opportunity outside of maybe what you're currently working in, you'll be able to talk to that specifically. So I definitely encourage people to keep a work journal, keep some type of tabs of like, okay, this is what I'm doing, the quantifiables, you know, what metrics are you achieving? And that's actually one of my other bullet points, but you definitely want to make sure that you're keeping track of actually what you're doing in your role so that you can add it to your resume so that it beefs it up a little bit more. You can talk more specifically to what you're doing. You're not just describing a job description, but you're telling the employer what you're able to contribute outside of the job description of your previous role or your current role.
So on that topic, how often should I be, writing, or how frequent, should I be updating this journal? Is it a daily thing or a weekly thing or per project? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I would definitely say per project or per role or per just anything outside of the general norm of what you do on a day-to-day responsibility. You want to make sure you keep tabs of it. If you're, taking on special assignments, if you're, increasing metrics by a certain percentage, you want to make sure that you're keeping track. So like from the very beginning of your role, if your role is measured by, again, metrics, you want to make sure that you're keeping track of that. And you can kind of keep track of that with your manager because you can talk about, what am I being evaluated on?
Right.
How can I talk to what I'm actually doing within this role? And even just if you're going above and beyond the role, if you created or redesigned or as we say in Amazon, think big. If you're thinking big on a certain topic or strategy, you want to make note of that. Again, the day-to-day, you're doing that. That's your job description. But what are you doing above and beyond? Keep tabs of that because that makes a difference where you're going into your next role or if you're going into a growth opportunity.
Yeah, no, great point. And I would add that to that is that when you actually have a job and you per se get bonuses or merit awards and different things like that at the end of the year, that journal goes a long way in remembering what you did and being able to put it in front of your boss. So not only does it help you with your current job, but to your point, is great for your resume so that next time when you're out looking for something new, there you go. You already have it. You don't have to make up anything or try to remember what you did.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. And even still, you're able to talk more to what you've done versus like you, again, just being contained in the general job description. Yeah. We as HR professionals, we can easily look up your what you did. If I type in, X, Y, and Z company with X, Y, and Z role, I can pull up your job description. Right. So what did you do, right? To make it unique in your own? And that's where the work journal comes in. How can you describe, your experience through your role? What did you actually do? And so that's important to keep the work journal. And I'm guilty of it myself. Like, I'm like, oh, I did this and I did that and I can't remember. So it keeps you accountable of like that memory of like what your actual contribution is. If you're a hard worker, how are you a hard worker?
Right.
What can you say to that? What can you speak to that? So I definitely encourage people to keep a work journal as they're going through their employment, either current or future or whatever it is, to make sure that they're keeping tabs of that, because you can speak to that not only in the interview, but like also in your resume. And that's important to have that contained in that document as well.
Awesome. Okay. Tip 2, what do you have for us?
All right. So tip 2, I'm going to say strong adverbs. So a lot of people don't, I don't want to say a lot of people, a good amount of people don't realize that you're supposed to start a lot of your bullet points that describe your description with strong adverbs or adjectives, right? So strong adjectives would be, strong verbs will be controlled, executed, produced, programmed, oversaw. Those are very strong. So you want to make sure you're leading with those adjectives or adverbs that are going to support what you've done. I know that I've seen some older school resumes where they're not in the bullet point format,
right?
And they're in like the paragraph format. You want to make sure that you're talking to what your actions have been in your career, and so looking up just even strong adverbs or adjectives that can help support that are really actually useful. And then you want to make sure even in your most current role, that you are using present tense. And then in your past roles, you're using past tense. Okay. So make sure that you're speaking to what you're currently doing in your present role, and then what you have been doing in your past role. Those little things, even though they seem very meticulous and very, it's not really that important. It is, because as I'm looking at it, as someone that is a little bit more meticulous, I want to make sure that your formatting is correct, and that you're speaking to very strong experience. And then, so with you being able to speak to that, using those strong action verbs are important. So definitely add that into your resume.
That's interesting. That was a transformation that I had, basically in my resumes, going from that quote unquote, I was responsible for blah, 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 to really, to your point, using strong words. And I actually had to kind of change my character in the way I look at myself, because, I'm, kind of that humble guy, and I'm not, really, really that, I don't know, flamboyant or anything like that, or boastful of myself. And so, I really had to change those words and say, no, I executed. No, I led the development of such and such, like, things that says, to your point, that show that you took action, not that you were just a fly on the wall, or, just a pawn in the whole scheme, but you were a king or queen, playing the chessboard. So
exactly. No, and you want to show off. If anything, again, like, I'm a humble person too, but this is a time for you to be competitive. You don't, you want to exceed your competition. Yep. So you want to show like, hey, I'm able to take ownership. I'm able to excel. I'm able to, produce, program, lead, whatever the case may be.
Right.
And those are, even though, again, it may seem like, oh, it's not really that big of a deal, but it is. Like, I want to know, have you been able to do these things in a very strong, supporting way that you're able to speak to it? And then how, what exactly did you do? And so starting off your bullet points with that is important. Use those strong adjectives or adverbs, I keep saying adjectives, adverbs or verbs to be able to support what your work is, because again, you're showing off, you're showing your skill set, and that's important again to be able to stand out from the competition.
Yes, 100% agree. And then just quickly to that point, some people begin to look at it and say, well, I don't want to lie. No, we're not telling them to lie. We're again, I think people like, well, I was the boss of this. No, we're not saying the, to fabricate or anything, because that will be found out in the interview. But just understand that you were important in your role and take
Right.
ownership of that, right?
Exactly. Definitely take ownership of what you did, because again, you're a valued employee. If you've been with the company for, 4, 6 months, whatever, you have value to add. So you want to highlight that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And using those verbs to be able to support that, again, nothing wrong with that. So you definitely want to, I don't want to say sugarcoat it, but you definitely want to make yourself kind of be presented in a way that is in the best form possible. So that's why I say, hey, use those strong action verbs, because they're supportive. They're going to make you stand out.
That's right.
And then making sure your present is present tense, your past is past tense. I mean, again, you would be amazed at what I see in resumes, but that's important too. That's an important detail.
Yep.
All of your present tense needs to be present tense. All your past tense needs to be past tense. But then also, again, use those strong action verbs because they're important.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Tip 3.
Tip 3. So, numbers speak louder than words. So I spoke to this a little bit in the very first bullet point or first tip, is that your actions or your numbers speak louder than what your actual words say. Excuse me. So quantifiables are important. What are your metrics? Did you increase percentages? Are you managing a certain number of people? Do you count? You work with a certain level of equipment, like details, quantifiables, important, because that's going to really make you stand out. Mm-hmm. Not even gonna lie. You can tell me again the general synopsis of what you do, but like when you can tell me the numbers, then I'm going to say, oh, okay, so this person can really, add value to the role that I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. So what are your quantifiables? And it does depend on your industry. Some industries are measured by quantifiables specifically, but for a majority of, the business industries, some of the maybe industrial industries, law, just depending on what industry it is, you can speak to your quantifiables. So it's important to add the quantifiables, your numbers, your metrics, whatever it may be, to your resume and your bullet points under your experience, because it definitely speaks a little bit louder to what you've actually been able to contribute to your business line or your company. So I think that that's a lot of added value for those people that are looking to kind of like make sure they're standing out a little bit more to their competition.
Right. No, so again, another transformation for me. I remember, I'll just take for an example. I was a position of a financial, quote unquote, financial analyst. Mm-hmm. And, I ran the numbers, I used Excel and I did different things. But when, when I first put that down on a resume or LinkedIn or something, it was like, that was it. But then, I came to understand that, okay, wait a minute, again, devaluing myself in a way, I didn't put down what I really did numbers wise. And so going back, it was like, okay, no, wait a minute. I ran, financial modeling for billions of dollars of our generation fleet, right? And that had, that were used to decide, things 10, 20 years in the future. Again, where, value over that time is over 100 billion, different things like that.
Mhm.
It's like, wait a minute, wow, I actually did something, right? So when you start to put numbers down, it makes people understand that, whether you did, you were doing, $5 an hour, or, handling tens of dollars, or tens of billions of dollars, right? So
Yep. For sure. You want to speak to what you actually did. And again, that kind of goes to like my first point is that you want to keep that work journal of what are
right.
you managing? What are you controlling? What are you, actually budgeting for? A
Right.
lot of those play a big role. And again, depending on your industry. So like, I want to give the same advice to somebody that's in the medical field, right? Because you're going to see countless amount of patients. You're going to be doing a lot of different things. No, it doesn't
Right.
really go for that. But for someone in a certain industry that is trying to grow into another role or another similar industry, specifically, I would say business is a big one. You want to keep track of those quantifiable sales, business, all of those
Engineering as well.
make a difference. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And it just makes you look stronger as a candidate, is going to help support you more as a candidate. So yeah, definitely try to tie in those things. Again, keeping that work journal and then adding in those quantifiable pieces to your resume is good for you to be successful.
Okay. All right, cool. I think we have 2 more tips. So tip 4.
Tip 4. Keep locking my phone. Okay, your formatting. So I've seen lots of different formatting, and I've heard of a lot of different formatting. I've heard of people putting their pictures on their resume. I've heard of people, just having lots of different colors and designs and just a lot of different things. And even just from resumes that I've seen myself, I'm like, oh, okay. Formatting is important. Okay, so when I say formatting, I mean font, I mean size, I mean structure, I mean like the whole 9 yards. Again, that might be seen like, oh, that's not very, it shouldn't really matter, but it does. If I'm looking at a resume and I see you have, Times New Roman, and I see you have, I'm trying Arial, and then I see you have, size font 5 here, and then size font 11 here. Like, what are you doing? And again, me being who I am, a little OCD, but like a lot of us HR people are, like, we're very specific to the details. So you want to make sure your formatting, everything is very formatted in a very structured way. So for people outside of anything that has to do with arts or like anything that has to do with like interior design, anything artsy, right. I'm excluding you people and I'm talking to everybody else. Make sure your formatting is very, very uniform. The font needs to be the same, other than maybe like your headliners, such as like your name. Your contact information could be a little bit, smaller. Name could be a little bit bigger, but like the body of your resume needs to be uniform. It sounds like it's not that big of a deal, but it is. You want to just make sure that everything looks font-wise is the same, structure is the same. If you're going to be using, your education first, your experience second, if you're using dates, make sure they're in the right sequence of order from the latest to the least current. Make sure that you have all of that organized correctly. Again, details are important, so formatting is important. Make sure you're looking, observing, editing, all that information, because we can tell an amateur resume from someone that's very professional.
Right.
And again, this is your chance. When you put back in the day, people used to go in and they used to apply. I mean, I'm not that old. I'm not that young. So I remember the days when like we didn't do computers and we didn't apply it through just a computer system. But nowadays you can't even really introduce yourself. You can't hand your resume to anybody. So you want to make sure that what you're presenting looks professional. So that's why I stress the uniform, the structure of the uniform of your resume, because it is important. You want to make sure you're showcasing yourself in the best light possible. So yeah, formatting is important. Do that. look through it. Have somebody look through it for you if you don't feel like it looks good, but like maybe you don't even know. And I personally, as someone that supports editing and provides that service of editing and writing resumes, is that like I will literally look to see if all your font is the same. And that's important to me because I feel like, especially as a HR professional, if you have like slightly bigger font here, different font size there or whatever, it's gonna make a difference. It's gonna show who you are as a professional. So it's important.
Yeah. So what I'll say to people that, again, maybe have the same mentality that I had coming out of college, or that mentality of, I'm an engineer, I don't need to worry about font, I don't need to worry about vocabulary, I'm a genius, whatever, right? To your point, outside of the artsy groups, the thing is that you're not generally going to hand your resume, or your resume is generally not going straight to another engineer, right? It's not going straight to another business person. There are gatekeepers. And to your point, gatekeepers are looking for professionally formatted, and they're looking for, again, it to be in order. So even if you as a engineer or whatever person, you're thinking you don't need that, what you need to do is actually go out there, get somebody who does know how to do it, who can look at it and say, okay, you need to do this detail and that detail, so that you can get through the gatekeeper. Because that's, again, to your point, it's about getting in the door. When you get in the interview, that's a whole different story, but you got to get to the interview. You got to get in it.
Yep, exactly. 100%. And again, it may seem very small and insignificant, but you're one of maybe hundreds, thousands even.
Maybe thousands.
Exactly.
Amazon and Apple and all of those.
Yep. And so you want to make sure you want to be the top of the line. You want to stick out. And sometimes those very small, even though they shouldn't be significant, as an HR professional, I'm going to look at those things. I'm like, okay, well, so they didn't really take, to me, that translates as they didn't take out the time, they didn't take out the energy to be able to take this seriously. So I'm not going to take them seriously.
That's right.
And as simple as that, simple as that. So that's why I stress for formatting. Again, you may not realize it and its importance, but the way you structure and format your resume is very important for your continued success through your career. So, yeah.
Yep. All right. Last tip.
All right. So the last tip I have for the day is research your industry. So I find a lot of people that either are new to the industry, they are trying to introduce themselves to a new industry from what they previously know, or just trying to excel in their industry. So it's important for that person to understand the industry that they're applying to. Now, you don't necessarily have to have all the criteria of that industry. You may have had experience to be able to translate to that industry. So it's important for you to research, what is the job description? What are they looking for? Maybe are there any qualifications, certifications, experience that they're looking for that I can speak to from my previous role or roles that I've been in, for you to be able to kind of structure the details of what your previous work experiences have been. So it's important for you to not just use your general resume all the time. Like it's okay in terms of maybe general roles,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're trying to excel into very specific, very detail oriented, very experience or high level positions, you want to
Right.
make sure you're researching that industry so that when you're constructing your resume, you can speak to exactly what they're looking for
Mm-hmm.
in your resume,
Yep.
and detail what you've done and kind of critique and not critique it or restructure what you've done to translate into whatever that industry is or whatever you're trying to achieve in terms of your application.
Mm-hmm.
So I stress to people research the industry that you're looking into, because when you're looking through your bullet points or your previous experience, even especially for government positions, you have to be very specific. Like you want to make sure you're outlining specifically what they're looking for and how it translates to what you've done.
Yep.
So go through the job descriptions, look for the certifications. If you even don't have the certifications, okay, it's okay. If you're thinking about getting that certifications, add it to your resume, you know? So
Cool.
you definitely want to see what your possible employer is looking for. How can you translate that from what your previous work experience has been? And then articulate that in the best way possible so that when you're applying, your possible employer can say like, oh, hey, this person is actually qualified. You don't want to apply for something you're not qualified for, right? So you want to make sure that whatever whatever you actually have done is translating to what they're actually looking for.
Yeah, so I mean that's you hit on something when you started to talk about the topic that I immediately thought of is that it's the general resume, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the one that like I've been, at different points in my career where, I'm applying for, a lot of jobs, right? And it's like, well, shoot, I can't. I was like, I don't want to write a different resume for each job. I just want to
Mm-hmm.
throw out a general one. But to your point, it really doesn't work all that well to shoot all of those, shoot your general resume out. It just
Mm-hmm.
you just wind up going to that general pile. Now, if they're looking for 20 of the same people, then you might get called, right? If they're just hiring a bunch of people and they don't really care. But again, to your point, when you speak to the specific role, you allow that hiring manager or that HR person to be able to see you in that role, like they can see the fit. If it's a general, resume, they're like, well, I can't. Maybe it'll fit, and maybe it's like, I can force it in there.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I would say the hard part of that is really taking the time to at least in some way work your resume to fit each job that you're applying to. It's kind of
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, to a certain extent. So like if you're applying to a specific industry,
yeah,
you can
that's
even research that industry and see what the general qualifications are,
that's
and
a
then
good point.
yeah, and then add to that in terms of your resume. So you don't necessarily have to like go for job to job to job. Okay, I'm
Okay.
gonna adjust and recreate. Like you can do like a very general or broad research to
I
your
got you.
industry. What is the general like qualifications? What are the general job descriptions, and how can I tie that to my role?
Okay.
Um, and then in terms of like maybe more specific, more like, you know, high level positions, yeah, I would say, it's worth it to take a little bit of time to just kind of critique and edit and adjust your resume to fit and conform to the industry or the job that you're trying to apply to. If you're really serious about it,
No,
you're gonna do it. So I think that it's important for you to just, you know, adjust it to conform to what you're trying to get, the goal that you're trying to achieve. Now, again, it depends on the industry. If you're applying to countless like accounting jobs, you know what accountants are looking for, you know what kind of certifications they're looking for. So like construct like a general resume for all those types of positions. But like if there's anything more specific that's extremely detail oriented, if they're looking for, a certain certification, if they're looking for a certain high level of like seniority or management or travel or budgeting or whatever, like make sure that you're adding that to your resume. And again, I've seen this more specifically with government positions, because those resumes don't get handed off to real life people automatically. They actually get handed off to an automated system, which evaluates your resume to see keywords and key points that are in your resume. And then they eventually get passed on to actual human hands. So speaking to that point, in case if it's not exclusively to, government positions, you want to make sure that you're speaking to your experience and how it translates to the industry that you're applying to. So research your industry. Even like if you're thinking about further along down the line, like, hey, I want to get, I want to be able to grow into this next level of employment. Like, how can I get there? Okay, well, you need to be able to, get this certification. So work towards that so you can add it to your resume, because that provides value. It provides the HR professional to see like, okay, well, this person's actually qualified for this, and they're just not applying just for the sake of applying, but they're actually qualified, and they can bring value to the role. So that's important.
So, and two quick points on that. So, I got a better understanding of what you're saying. Like, especially to your point, especially earlier in your career, or if you're more or less applying, for, and maybe even moving to a different industry, you definitely want to understand like that industry and what they're looking for. And again, an example of that was when I moved from automotive to energy. I needed to understand that, they didn't care about an engine per se in my new role, in utility, but they wanted to know that I was good at numbers, because numbers are everywhere. You need to be able to be very analytical. So those are the areas that I highlighted in order to take that next step and be able to move to there. And then the other point about, even understanding what certifications different industries, like when I would move from utility back to the automotive, because I had lost some of the engineering, acumen that I had. What I realized is project management was still important. So what I did was said, okay, well, and it was your cousin that actually pushed me to do this. I was like, well, I might as well
get which one.
Yeah, I know you got a lot, but but he was like, yeah, you should get or he was like, I'm gonna go get my my PMP, or my project management certification.
Okay.
And yeah, so I decided, I was like, well, I should get mine too, right? And I was like, no, that would be a good thing to be able to bridge the gap again for me going back to the industry that I wanted to, which was automotive. And it worked out great, So you got to be able to understand what people are looking for and position yourself. That's what it's about, right?
Yep.
So, go ahead. Yep.
Oh no, I was just going to agree with what you're saying. Like, it's important to articulate, because again, you can have a very general resume, but like, are you speaking to what they're actually looking for? Yeah. So that's why you need to research, like, what exactly, how can I tie in? Even like, I'm giving you guys a little insight on what I do, but when I research an industry for somebody that's needing their resume updated for just like any industry, or if they're like trying to grow in the industry, I'm going to research the job description. I'm going to research what the qualifications are, education, certifications, whatever it may be, to help be able to translate that from what they've previously done in their previous roles. How does that connect? Because sometimes we do things in our current jobs that can translate to what we're trying to do in another industry, or even the same industry. So it's important to understand what the actual job description is. Like, even though we see, okay, like, yeah, it looks good, I want to get into this, but like, how can you tie in what your previous job role, how does that translate into the next role? So that's why I say research, see what you need to do to be qualified. If you're looking in the long term, maybe that's something that you reach towards a goal, like, hey, I want to get certified in this so I can get this position. Or even on the short term, like, I'm looking into, I don't know, I've done project management, but I'm looking into maybe going into a career of like accounting or something like that. Like, how well do I deal with numbers in my first role? How can I translate into the new role?
Yeah,
So like,
yeah.
you want to make sure that you're tying in those things because you researched it. It's like, okay, well, I know that they're going to be looking for somebody that's good with numbers. So how can I connect to that?
Right.
That's important. Because like, you don't necessarily have to have the specific experience. It's like, how can you translate your current experience to the new experience?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%. Awesome. 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 Thank you. So we are going to ask that you give any information that you can for people to be able to reach out and connect with you, so that, again, my listeners can find you and get the awesome help that you'll be providing.
Yes. So I am on social media. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, Resumes with Roseman on both platforms. You can look me up on either one. My email's attached to both platforms. So if you're interested in services, definitely reach out. Love to help. I definitely stress again, some people can make it about someone helping to support their resume, but because of the nature of society these days, it's competitive. And I feel like even if it's just for someone to refresh your resume, it doesn't necessarily have to be a complete rewrite, which I also provide that service of just refreshing your resume. It's good for somebody to look at it. Even if it's not myself, I suggest you have somebody look at your resume. It's good for somebody outside of yourself to look, support, advise, critique, whatever, before you apply to the job. But if you do want my services, I am on both platforms, resumes with Roseman at outlook.com. You can reach out to me, and then I will consult you on what type of service I can provide for your specific needs. But again, I thank you for inviting me to this platform. And yeah, I'm here to help. I'm here to support on resume editing, writing, and interview coaching. So I look forward to just answering any questions your followers have. And yeah, I'm glad that I can be on this platform.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Breanne. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Again, we'll have Breanne's information attached to our comments, and we're gonna make sure you're able to find her. So thanks, everyone, for joining. Again, we appreciate you and look forward to you at our next episode of The Business of You. Thanks, and have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.